Wisconsin 95, Illinois 74. For the Illini, this is another tough loss. They're 9-8. They're obviously shorthanded in the loss of Morez Johnson. Brutal for Illinois. Visage battling an illness. Needless to say, Wisconsin rolls. Blowout fashion. John Tonje has 63 points in his last 2 games. Mike LaTulip, your reaction from a Badgers, what ended up being blowout win?
Yeah, they just continue to do what they've done over the last few years, really. I mean, like the evolution of Wisconsin basketball is notable. I remember my freshman year, we're doing the scout for Wisconsin. This would have been the 2012-2013 season. And everybody kept talking about, well, they want the game in the 50s and 60s. They want the game in the 50s and 60s. And then we're on the bus back, and I'm like, they just hung 95 on us. And that felt like the start with Frank Kaminsky and with those guys. And then when Guard takes over, just kind of ushering in and modernizing their offensive game a bit and getting a bit more athletic and not having that tic-tac-toe type of swing offense and going more, hey, we're going to put 3 handlers and advantage creators on the floor, and we're going to deck you, and we're going to attack mismatches. And they've had that grouping over the years where they've had, it's Davison and it's Hepburn and it's Davis and it's Hepburn last year and Storr and Klesmit. And this particular grouping with Blackwell, with Klesmit, and with Tonje is just, I mean, what do you do with the shooting around them? And then tonight, a team that doesn't rebound it particularly well gets after it on the offensive glass and creates more opportunities for that high-powered offense that they have. So it's been awesome to see this program grow, and they've always been good, but just doing it in a different way and adjusting to the style of basketball that we now see in 2025. And man, they got a dude in Tonje that they can make a run at this conference. I mean, we'll see what happens with Michigan State here coming up this weekend. But I mean, don't look now. They're a game back. If Michigan ends up losing that game, a game back, and have by far the easiest schedule out of all the contending teams at the top of the Big Ten.
The biggest thing that sticks out to me, you talked about the evolution of their offense. The biggest thing that I saw today especially was that initial push, the first 6 to 7 seconds of each possession. That, to me, like, that's the biggest difference I've seen from even the last 3-4 years. You go back, and they've had shot creators, Chucky Hepburn, but a lot of times, I don't know, it might have just been the games I watched, but it seemed like they walked the ball up the floor, and they were hoping to create an advantage in the mid-teens, and then hopefully the ball moved around. Credit to Greg Gard. He's letting those guys figure it out at the beginning of the possession. And there was a couple possessions. John Blackwell gets the ball up to right 45 and is pushing it. It's the first side of the offense. This is sacrilege under Bo Ryan. However, the first side of the offense, he's able to create advantage right away, a first person touching the ball on the first side of the floor. And what's ended up happening is it just starts that chain of reaction quickly, and then they're able to find something. That being said, with so much space on the floor and so much different shooting, like, it's just they're able to create these shots. And not to mention the fact that I think Stephen Crow, one of his best strengths is the fact that he's a phenomenal screener. And a thing that John Tonje has in his bag that we knew he had in his bag was his ability to run away and shoot. He hit a couple of shots, and he's on such good balance, he might as well just been sitting there by himself. So their ability to play within structure and then also break it down for the first 6 seconds of the clock was something that really stood out to me in how well and how sharp they passed the ball. And I come back to this all the time, guys, but like the skill of just passing and catching is so crucial. Any team that stumbles, any team that holds it for a half second, you could see it today. Illinois struggled with that. Will Riley doesn't like passing the ball. And that was readily evident. And I'm not sure that he doesn't like it or he wasn't confident enough to just let the ball go, to let the offense work for Illinois. But it was kind of like one well-oiled machine and one team that was struggling with the clutch. That's what it looked like to me when these two teams were playing.
Yeah, it sure did. And I think that, Mike, not only are they one of the nation's best offenses, but let's not forget about who they are defensively. They're still a top 40 unit on that end of the floor. And I thought tonight they turned Kasparas Yekachonis over 7 times. I think we're seeing a freshman in the Big Ten having to go through some of that. But they're switchable. They're versatile. They've got length. They can guard as well. It's not just a a tremendous offensive team. When they're engaged, Michael Tulip, on the defensive end of the floor, and they're able to contain dribble penetration, they become that much more dangerous because a couple times tonight, they're able to force some turnovers. They forced 14 of them. You're giving that type of offense 14 giveaways, you could say goodnight.
Well, I mean, we talked about the evolution of Wisconsin's offense. What hasn't changed for Wisconsin is their discipline. And that's defensively as well. I mean, just being assignment sound, understanding, hey, Kasparis Yakashonis, I'd say 75% of his turnovers this year have been trying to thread gaps that aren't there. And they loaded up, they plugged the gaps tonight. They said, hey, this is an Illinois team that's been struggling to shoot the ball from the outside. Prove it to us. Prove it to us tonight. We're going to shrink these gaps and then you turn those stops and those turnovers into what you're talking about, T.O., and getting out in transition, which, I mean, I think they're close to 11 transition points per game this year, which is the most they've had, I think, ever. Seriously, like, I think ever. And to your point again, T.O., like, what is the best time to create an advantage and attack? It's when it's in space and in transition. And I think that's what Gard understands too about this team is we got a really good free throw shooting team, the best potentially ever, depending how they finish out this season. So why wouldn't we attack in as much space as possible? I mean, that's when the defense is the most spread out. Some of the defenses, may not have their matchups, and you can go and attack those. So it all ties together for this Wisconsin team, and it's a big reason why. I mean, they're just another team here in the Big Ten. I know there's a lot of talk about the SEC, but this is another team that I think can really go far because they just oftentimes they just don't beat themselves.
From your experience dealing in the Big Ten, is this the best team they've had since the Kaminsky unit?
Since the Kaminsky unit, yeah. I mean, the Kaminsky unit was crazy. I mean, we played against them my junior year, and it was like, what the hell do you do? I mean, they shooting everywhere. Sam Decker was a complete mismatch. They threw it in the high post with Kaminsky. He could face up. He could step out. But they also didn't play with this type of pace. And they honestly probably could have. But they didn't. I mean, with Koenig and Trayvon Jackson in the backcourt, that was a really, really good unit. But this is the best since then, I think.